Hello and welcome to Module 5, Making the AfCFTA Work. This is the last module for this course. So in terms of the learning objectives, what we want to do in this last module, we want to take stock of the current status of the implementation of the AfCFTA agreement. We want to understand what are the initiatives that have been set up by the African Union and partner organizations to support and monitor implementation. We'll critically assess the policies and measures needed to make the agreement work. We'll try to understand the importance of national AfCFTA strategies as complementary measures to leverage the benefits of the CFTA. And we'll look at the governance structure, the institutional setup that underpin implementation of the AfCFTA agreement. In particular, we'll appreciate the role of national committees in the implementation of the agreement. So the AfCFTA agreement is ready for implementation. In fact, it's been agreed that at the Niamey summit that tariff liberalization would commence on 1st July 2020. That will happen even though some critical elements remain to be completed. Things like schedules of concessions for trading goods, rules of origin, some guidelines have to be still are missing. Some institutions still need to be set up. So all those things have not been completed, but we are going ahead and starting the implementation process. In fact, the AfCFTA has already entered its operational phase in July 2019, following the AU decision in Niamey. So the Niamey summit, as I said, has decided that trade liberalization, as per agreed schedules, would commence on 1st July this year. The non-LDCs, that is the non-least developed countries, will liberalize 90% of the imports in equal installments over the next 5 years. The least developed countries will have 10 years to do so. And then there is a group of 6 countries that will have 15 years to implement their commitments. So a longer time horizon to implement their commitments. The Niamey summit also launched 5 complementary initiatives to support implementation of the agreement. These are the first, AfCFTA product-specific rules of origin covering 90% of tariff lines. Then the second one is an online NTB mechanism. So this is the mechanism for reporting and monitoring non-tariff barriers. It's online, so any stakeholder who is affected by a non-tariff barrier that he or she believes is unfair and that shouldn't have been there can actually report it for information, but also for necessary action. The third is a Pan-African digital payments platform that will allow traders to actually settle in local currency, and therefore that will help save them transaction costs related to converting currencies. The fourth one is an online portal for tariff negotiations. And then finally, the AU Trade Observatory, which will provide updated trade data and information that would be of benefit to traders and the business community. All members are expected to come up with a checklist of obligations and statements and steps, to taken to ensure implementation of the agreement. We'll talk about this as we go. So what policies are needed to make the AfCFTA work? The ARIA 9 report, the Assessing Regional Integration in Africa report, the 2019 report, considers complementary measures taken along uh, five components of what they call an export path to optimize the benefits of the AfCFTA. You can see those measures on the chart on this slide. So these measures are organized around five components: investment, production, trade facilitation, trade-related infrastructure, and import defense. So under each of the component, in each of the components, you have a series of measures that countries, that governments can take to leverage the benefits from the AfCFTA. So, for example, when it comes to investment, we are talking about national investment plans. We are talking about investment promotion agencies, which could be beefed up and which could be further supported. When it comes to trade facilitation measures, non-tariff barriers obviously are going to be very important, because that will be the main way in which trade facilitation measures could be implemented, but also standards infrastructure and simplified trade regimes. When it comes to trade-related infrastructure, we are talking about logistics management. We are talking about program for infrastructure development in Africa, PIDA, for example. Let us focus on this particular aspect of the implementation, and that would be the AfCFTA national strategies. These strategies can help a country the uh, leverage the benefits from the African continental free trade area by by adopting measures in a coherent way to really optimize the benefits that could result from the FTA. So they will allow identification of sectors of comparative advantage, trade opportunities, current constraints, and emerging challenges. And they can also inform policies and complementary measures that a country need to take in order to take full advantage of the AfCFTA. The ARIA report describes 8 key elements of a national AfCFTA strategy. So I strongly encourage you to refer to the report and to the course manual, which talks about these elements in more detail. These include a situational analysis, so basically taking stock of the, the, the country, taking stock of its the economy, where it stands in terms of economic development, doing a sectoral analysis and looking at where opportunities are, what are the challenges. So this obviously will follow from a good SWOT analysis. It will allow the country also to identify some strategic objectives, to develop an action plan based on those objectives, and come up with a monitoring and evaluation framework. And finally, a communication plan, a plan to communicate the national strategy to the key stakeholders in the country. The AfCFTA national strategy will need also to mainstream certain cross-cutting issues. These would be issues such as gender equality, environment, and climate change. And obviously, in developing such a strategy, a participatory approach is recommended. So this would be an inclusive approach where the key stakeholders are consulted. They are very much roped into the process, and that is how you build ownership of the strategy, of the national strategies at the end of the day. In terms of institutional arrangements, we have here a chart that describes the institutional arrangements necessary for effective and good implementation of the AfCFTA. The central to the implementation would be an institutional framework that is set out in Articles 9 to 13 of the agreement, along with further substructures that are detailed in the protocols and annexes. So, at the apex, you have the African Union Assembly, which acts as the oversight body. It provides critical political and strategic guidance. Then you have the Council of Ministers, which is the main decision-making institution of the AfCFTA. It's mandated to establish and supervise the AfCFTA Secretariat and attendant committees and subcommittees. And those committees, Committee on Trading Services, Dispute Settlement Body, Committee on Trade in Goods, along with six subcommittees under the Committee on Trade in Goods. And then you have the AfCFTA national committees and regional committees. Let me spend a few minutes on the AfCFTA national committees. This would be an important mechanism. It can be actually the agreement explicitly calls for such a committee to be set up in each country for the effective implementation of the AfCFTA. It should ideally be created by the Ministry of Trade as part of the country's national strategy, as part of the country's AfCFTA national strategy. It should be inclusive in its composition, so broad group of stakeholders included in the process. They are consulted, and they can be organized into specialized teams according to the expertise or interests. The committee can propose concrete steps to take advantage of opportunities created by the AfCFTA. They can also make recommendations about how to strengthen certain sectors coming under competitive pressure. So the AfCFTA national committees would be an important mechanism at the level of each country that would help in implementing and monitoring the implementation of the AfCFTA. It can be conceived as part of the AfCFTA national strategy, and it has to be in terms of its composition, it has to be broad, it has to be inclusive, it has to develop a good communication plan to build ownership and obviously to effectively implement and eventually monitor the agreement. And that brings us to the end of the course. Thank you for staying along. I hope this was a good learning experience to you, and I wish you good luck with implementation of the AfCFTA. This is a big thing. If you're involved in that, obviously you can bring your own contribution, but you can also help diffuse knowledge about this important step in African continental integration